with big tarp things on the roof because it ripped the roof off, I guess. Parts of the roof came off. I'd seen how I drove by a building that the roof burned off, and it's all because of these winds.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. But watch out for the wildfires.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't
like
know.
stirring up, I guess, pollen and dust and mold spores. I don't know, but it's like every day I wake up and I just like, oh, I want to go back to bed because my eyes
Uh,
are burning, my throat burns, and I'm
yeah.
all
I hear you on
stuffy.
that. Hey, what interesting thing about you said about Hungary, you know that Hungary is banning all LGBTQ events too,
Yeah, I
right?
saw that.
So,
Right. I mean, they've
yeah.
been like doing like all the kids in school have to take classes in like folk dancing, and
Uh-huh.
they're bringing back traditional clothing, traditional holidays, the like teaching the I think they're a Turkic language, Hungarian, and having babies. And while the rest of Europe is going completely bonkers.
Bonkers. Yep. And ironies of ironies, Hungary is is where George Soros comes from, and so there maybe I wonder if there's something to that. It just it's fun when it connects. Whether that's the driving force or not doesn't matter. I'm just thinking, here we go. I mean, you look at all the it's kind, I've said it before. It's like a spider web. You go down one strand and then you get a sidetrack to another one, and you find out it's all connected somehow. It goes to the middle.
Right. People like don't understand. And I've looked into it somewhat because my father's family is from what is now Western Ukraine. And before that, it was the Austrian Hungarian Empire. And people forget that that was like a thing that was under all those German princes, and that they were, there's Western Ukraine and Hungarian identity has been ruled by one empire after another. Like my family, they're Carpatha Rusin and known in Poland as Lemko people. And what people don't understand is that because of that, people in Western Ukraine and Hungary, there's many subdivisions of ethnic groups there. To them, a nation is like in the Bible, where a nation is actually a cohesive group of people. Not they don't have to, culturally cohesive behind a leader. Some of these Russian Eastern areas, people, if you ask them, what are you? They would say whatever their ethnic group is. They wouldn't really say, for example, Ukrainian or Hungarian. That's, over the centuries, just lines on a map. They changed where Austrian Hungarians, were Hungarians, were Ukrainians, were Poles, were this, all that changes all the time. But the people are like, we've been living in this house for nobody knows 700 years on this piece of land. I don't care if it's Austria, Hungary, you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard for people to understand that um the modern being a nation and a place on a map that are equal to each other is a very modern thing.
Yeah. Yes. So,
Oh, Rick,
lots of
really, Ricky? You're Carpathian Ruthian? Okay. That's like you're more like cousins then. So yeah. Our people, like Ricky's talking about the Carpathian, they had a country for like 1 second in Ruthenia in somewhere in the Middle Ages, and it only lasted a couple years. So then they got sucked into yet another empire, and it's just crazy.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of how I think the world works. Just gotta absorb. Yeah. Uh, I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting, and there's just so much. Of course, there's
But
already so much going on too.
right, I don't know what George Soros's family identified as, except for Jewish, which is sort of another subculture within a subculture, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
why they built it. They decided to do the Israel thing because,
Yeah.
the let's just say like since the Jews were traditionally the money lenders and goldsmiths and this and that, people are happy to be friends, and the so-called palace Jews, like accountants, lawyers, etc. It's just part of the tradition going way back. They can be really popular when you need them in your country, and really unpopular if, for example, you have cults like the Sabbatean or Frankish cult, and or you've borrowed all the money and now they want to get paid back, kind of thing. Then all of a sudden you don't want them in your country anymore. And this is caused a lot of trouble over the centuries.
Yeah. Yeah. I unfortunately I just don't understand how all that happens, so or how all that connects very much. But
Well, it's
when you
because Christians were not allowed to be money changers because of the
right,
Bible. So the Jews
right,
played that role.
right,
And so Jews were actually imported by royal families as sort of like a servant of sorts. And they
right,
would pack their palace uh accountants, treasurers, keeper of
yeah,
the gold, keeper of the books, blah blah blah, and have them in there to do things that Christians it was dirty, to the Christian mind. I don't deal with this kind of stuff, this money stuff, and keeping track of debts. That's all dirty work. So, and that's just real. That's like a real historical fact. And
I think I if I if I everything I read, if I'm reading correctly, I my understanding is because it was the Romans, and what the tax collectors would do would they would kind of, you know, take kickbacks. They would kind of bump up the taxes so they can give the Romans theirs, and then they would take some too for themselves. So that's, I mean, if that's what you're referring to.
no, this would be after the Roman era.
Oh, okay.
So when people, so like for example, people are familiar with the concept that for whatever reason, the Knights Templar kind of took a money lending or moving money role. And of course, they were killed when the King of France, who wanted to wage like ambitious wars and stuff, owed them too much money. It was France, right? Or Spain? No, France. And he killed well, they claim he killed them all, but he didn't. That's why I always say maybe the Knights Templar weren't that bad, because they were kind of breaking up the monopoly of who in society was allowed to loan money and to take interest. So um, it's like a weird thing, and it went on all through the Middle Ages and all the way. People that just like certain types of people have the last name Miller or Goldsmith or uh there's all kinds of last names that indicate what guild you were in, and at some point it became your last name. Yeah, blacksmiths like Smith, the name Smith is because of blacksmiths, and some people say there were so many blacksmiths in the end of the Middle Ages is because the blacksmith was the only person in the village who, like, by law, was not required to take up arms, even if it was just, their pitchfork. Because if your blacksmith died, you had no one to repair your weapons. And if you had no one to repair your weapons, you were gone. So smiths had a very good life cycle compared to your average peasant. And
Right.
that's why
Well,
Smith is the most popular name in Europe, they say. So there's like there are things that people, back in the day, you did not pick what you did. You were born into it. Whatever your father was, unless you got permission from the Lord to change, that's what you were.
Yeah, and I imagine too it had not just the weapons but the horses because they had
Yep.
to shoe the horses.
So a lot of very common names, if you look up the meaning of the name, it's a occupation or role that was played in the Middle Ages as a role, and you didn't have much choice if you were born to whatever iron blacksmith or whatever. Pretty much you were going to be a blacksmith.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
My,
farrier, horseshoes, all kinds of stuff.
yeah. My mother told. Let's see.
And the
Oh,
Jews had their role, and they were the bankers. I'm just saying, and that's why they still are, and lawyers.
yeah.
And it's part of the culture because the Jewish religion is based on kind of scholarly, lawyerly concepts of right and wrong or whatever. And it was different than the Christian concept of right and wrong, which was more of a natural right, superstitious, or not superstitious, supernatural or God given thing. For the Jews, not so much. It's a different thing. It's an interpretation thing. They rabbinical Jews argue the law all day long. That's what they do. It's their thing. It's their, if you want to call it religion, that's what a rabbi is a teacher of the laws.
Right.
So it's like, why are so many Jewish people lawyers and goldsmiths? Because that's what their culture was, and that's what they were through the Middle Ages. And
Um.
that's the role they played. So what can I say? It's not even a racist thing or a bad thing to say. Although I made a Jewish guy, a young guy, I just said the word bankers and he got really freaked out and said, "I'm Jewish." I'm like, "So?" Like, and then I'm like, "Oh, the banker thing. Even the word banker triggers you."
Wow.
You know what I mean? I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't saying it in that way." But some people like, yeah, it's apparently a very sensitive issue, which is
Wow.
sad.
Yeah. Well, it. I will. Well, I'm glad to know that because I would have never have known that. I know my mother told me that her grandfather, so it would have been my great great grandfather on her side of the family, was a cabinet maker to the king of Czechoslovakia. So it's
Wow.
yeah,
Right.
and
I
they.
mean, a lot, I mean, like just so many people running around with the name Carpenter, Miller, uh, and some of them are the word of a village or because your family lived there so long. Like my maiden name, I believe, is the name of a region in what's Western Ukraine now. Uh, and But the other most popular thing is a name, but it might be in French or German. So you don't recognize it as the name of an occupation, but if you look it up, you'll find out it is.
Hmm.
And there were some weird occupations back then too.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's interesting. I never. I'm not when it comes to world history. I'm not that familiar with it. So I mean, it's just I know there's so much. I mean, because the history of the world is, or and I mean world, as in the planet Earth world, is just so vast, and there's just so much to it, and that's the reason why I think they say that our yeah. If you really want to know the history, go back to the original text. Don't go back to the original writings and not what you necessarily see in the textbooks anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just for a long time was really obsessed with the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, read tons of books, watched lots of documentaries. There's a lot of stuff, good stuff still out there on YouTube and that they don't ban necessarily history on YouTube. So that's still there. And to me it's just I just always felt like if you don't know where things came from, you have no way of knowing why things are the way they are and where they're likely to go in the future. So it's just the older I got, actually, the more I appreciate it. It used to be just kind of a fancy. And now I'm like sometimes get very obsessed with some of these things and like deep dive for months. Then I'm like, okay, and then I move on to some other thing I get obsessed with. I guess
Yeah,
it's called autism.
yeah, I remember. Oh, a few months ago, or maybe a couple of years ago, we were looking to the Knights Templar, and I didn't realize they were the ones that kind of started the banking systems, and that's where we started getting checks. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Right. I know that everyone, you know, there's so many people that are so obsessed with the Knights Templar and the Masons and this, that, and the other thing. And in a way, there have been times when I'm super obsessed with it. But as time's gone on, I realize that there's really nothing more the deep state wants more than people grinding on these things because they're cool and they have symbols and funny hats and medals and all this stuff. But on the other hand, um, taking the security clearance away from Norm Eisen, I think is just a lot more important than whether his grandfather was a Mason or whatever. It's interesting if his grandfather was a Mason. My grandfather was a Mason, actually kind of a high level one. That's a whole nother story. Um, but it doesn't really impact my life. In fact, none of us even really knew that much about it until I started looking into it. And once I kind of looked into it, I'm like, okay, that happened, and I moved on. And I just don't think about the Masons or the Knight Templar that much. Fact of the matter is, the Knight Templar in some ways saved Christianity, so I think they get a really kind of bad rap, actually. And if they would have won, we wouldn't have Israel or any of this mess because the Middle East would still be part of Christendom, and the whole world would be different if they would have won, but they didn't. And then they were demonized and killed. So it's kind of like, I don't know, are they getting a bad rap or not? I'm not sure. I mean, they had this crazy trial that said they were all gay and worshiping like some kind of skull or whatever it was. And they certainly weren't traditional. They seemed to have some esoteric heresy going on, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like everybody in the Middle Ages they wanted to kill, they said they were a heretic and worshiping something in the woods. It was very common. So it's hard to say.
Sounds like something similar to the Salem witch trials. That
Yes.
all you had to do is point your finger at somebody and accuse them of something.
Yeah, well, they waited till they were losers. You know, they're perfectly happy with them as long as they kept the Muslim hordes, Saracens out of Palestine or whatever. But once they became, you know, they lost, and the entire royal families were all indebted to them. All of a sudden, they were bad guys. So I don't know.
So what do you look forward to the next couple of weeks? Because it looks like there's going to be some interesting things happening. Uh, King was it? I think Charles and President Trump are supposed to meet together, or have they already met? I mean, I get the kind of the blurbs, but then I don't really go through and read every single article I see. I just mainly look at the headlines, because if you really want to get kind of the truth of what's going on, the negative truth is kind of like three or four paragraphs down, and it's because the headlines are also misleading. That's like they when they said that President Trump said that he would pay the astronauts out of his own pocket for overtime, and what he really said is, if it comes necessary, he would. He didn't say he would, just flat out do it. But so I don't know.
I don't know. I'm like too headachy right now to like nothing's coming to mind, although I'm sure I probably have heard things. But I mean, these legal battles, that's a big deal. And that's super annoying.
Oh, tell me
I
about it.
mean,
Well,
The thing that's interesting about it is that it's clear to anybody who's watching and wants to see if you can understand the concept that Trump is not just this erratic, bumbling guy, which he really seems like a lot, and that he is surrounded by people, some of which are really smart and not just sycophants. It seems pretty obvious that they sat around for 4 years at Mar-a-Lago and gamed out all the moves that the deep state would make. And they're letting them do their thing. And then once it gets ridiculous, they do something like pull the security clearance. This is going to all end up, it's all going to end up on Judge Roberts, is really what it comes down to, and Amy Coney Barrett. And even then, I mean, I think everybody knows there's something wrong with both of those people.
Yeah. Well, I got a question, and like I said, I only get part of because everybody was sitting there saying that this was it Bosbart, whatever his name. You know, he's sitting there. He's a lower court judge, and he tried to stop President Trump from sending the plane to was it El Salvador or so, you know, taking Tren I can't say it Tren de Agua or Agua and so my question is, did he do it just kind of unilaterally on his own, or was there actually a court case that came across his desk to try to stop this, and then that's what he did?
I believe that was the ACLU, but the money
Okay.
behind it was Soros. So yeah, someone's filing a complaint and then they filed the stay. It's like pending the court case. But the I don't know when the so anyway, the lower courts being able to do a nationwide stay. As you recall, they did that to Trump in his first term. Like some judge in Hawaii put a hold on that travel ban during at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
There were other ones that they did this. It seems to me there's just no law that prevents it, but the only people that could make laws that um pertain to the functioning of the courts, really all of it, is Congress. And Congress never does anything.
Right.
So um I think that we're just in an era where people are so lack ethics, and they're so weaponized and so corrupt and tied into all this, money, and family members tied into money, and just they're just so weaponized and elitist or whatever, that they look and, like, in the past no one would even imagine for a lower court to do a stay on anything nationwide. Like, no one would even think to do such a thing because it doesn't make sense. But then somewhere somebody started it and now everybody's doing it because Roberts didn't stop them, Congress didn't stop them, so why wouldn't they? And people are totally have no moral compass anymore. Everything is doing what you can get away with. It just seems to be the way people function nowadays. I mean, I just heard, I don't know why I skipped over this story, but somewhere in my pile here, it used to be that Chinese nationals would get pregnant, get on a plane, come to America, stay in a birthing hotel, have their pregnancy here, have the baby, get the child's social security number and birth certificate as an anchor baby, and then pack up and leave and go back to China or Russia or whatever. I just heard this morning that now they have hotels full of surrogate mothers. So the Chinese or Russian people or whatever, rich people, aren't even coming here anymore to stay and have the baby. They're just sending the sperm and egg here and implanting it in a rent-a-womb mother who stays in a hotel or whatever here in America. And then the surrogate mother has the baby, gets the social security number and birth certificate, and then the Chinese or whatever parent comes here and picks up the baby. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. I mean, first
Oh
of
yeah.
all, who are these women who rent their womb out or whatever? That's creepy in its own. I mean, you have to be kind of MK Ultra to want to do that, I guess. And
Well,
then,
I think part of that too is because there's so many advertisements. You know, people are like, or and this is uh it's probably a front because what they'll probably do is someone will advertise, "Hey, we're looking for surrogates. We got these clients who want the baby, but for whatever reason they can't have it. Will you be the surrogate?" Because I've seen it on Facebook that there's a organization, I can't remember what it is, but they're advertising for surrogate mothers.
well,
And you know, surrogate mothers, sometimes they might do it out of either thinking they're doing something good for these people, or you know, maybe they're in a situation where they're feel desperate and they're wanting the money because they get paid. You know, surrogates get paid their medical, and they also get paid for being, you know, like you said, the rent a womb or whatever. So being a surrogate, so that that you know, I never would have thought something like that would be a reason. And you know, but you know, that
of course, my first thought was when people are saying that whatever it is, 500,000 yeah, children and women who came in the country as migrants are missing in the system somewhere. Who's to say you don't have like foster care type families who get one of these kids, and then to make extra money, they enroll them in this creepy Chinese wealthy families want a anchor baby world, and they get the kid impregnated, the foster kids impregnated, and you get a cut of that, plus you're getting the foster care money and who knows what other benefits and so on and so forth. I mean, it sounds pretty profitable to me, and I hate to say stuff like that, but in my mind, like at some point, it's got to be the migrants that are doing a lot of all this really creepy, horrible stuff because they are, in essence, slaves, especially kids
well, think of the Chinese businessmen were running these, you know, with the reputation of these Chinese massage parlors, you know, being a front for prostitution and sex trafficking. You know,
and
the
money laundering.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a big organization, and you know, President Trump is really having a hard. You know, it's such a big organization that I don't know what it's going to take to bring it all down, but you know, one bite at a time, I guess.
Yeah, like Real Painting Mantis is saying the Epstein Ranch. Exactly. Or wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that creepy guy, what was his name? Oprah's friend, John of God? He was running baby mills. It's a thing.
People still put her on a pedestal. What can you say?
But, well, I better get going here. I just want to like rest my eyes and stuff. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, I hope
anyway,
you.
I hope that
Uh,
it was a pleasure chatting with you. I hope you have a good rest of your show.
Thank you, and you'll see everybody, or everybody will see you tomorrow morning,
Yep,
correct?
tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. I'll see y'all.
Well, I hope your eyes get when my eyes get watery like that, I try to put like a hot compress or something,
Yeah.
like take a wash rack, because it's all like it cleans out the debris out of my eyes, and it
Yeah.
only lasts for a few minutes, but it feels so good.
Yeah. Alrighty. I'll see you guys later.
All right, thanks for chatting with me, Erin.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, this is Honor Ringing the Prayer Scenes. Thursday morning is from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern, just for your time zone, and 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturday evenings, again, just for your time zone. So, okay, let's see. Let's see, how can I do this? put a 1 if you're gonna stick around. So I can, and then we got several different ways we can go. I started going through the JFK drops Thursday morning. We can continue to do that. So put an A if you want to do uh, JFK drops. Continue. They added more, so we didn't even scratch the surface. But I thought we came up with some very interesting things. If you were here Thursday morning, you know what I was talking about. If you want to get a recap, or I'll do a recap, but you can always go back to my Rumble channel, and you can see what we uncovered. And I will put that in, and then put a B. We can do Tom Fitton, a Tom Fitton Okay, with so much happening this week, we can do a Tom Fenton recap. So put a B if you want to do that. And while you're putting a 1, whether you're going to stick around or not, and uh, then an A, like, hey, 47, Ellen 101. That's an idea. Put a 47 if you want to keep going with the JFK files. So we'll do that. So in the meantime, while I do that, I will do my show opener, and I will be back. I am recording this, so I have to do some finagling so that when I do things up to my Rumble channel, you don't see everything I'm doing.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in an evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith with which you will be able to quench all of the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and all prayer in the Spirit. Be watchful to all turns, supplicating all saints, and read that out of be given people to all take none of them mystery, for which ambassador and chance, no son. It's holy, let us see. Amen.
God, I am the teacher of the Holy Spirit. They also serve Jesus Christ. To unite with wisdom, understanding, with the counsel and knowledge and fear of the Lord. And holy, the secret of the for such years, in something, but you never come, and no good your eyes. I see different connections, no story, into his mouth. Bring the light, all such and tree, expose errors, expose the heart of the and its and they may say, always thankful to not be God. Your truth and to me, us. God makes certain that I certain only you will raise Christ, and what have two souls, and those that me, and sweet, and courage to hear, not allowed to never shine. For God, I see that tender heart, for person and truth. Promise you, it's not a picture of you, such a little soul, mind, and certain delight, knowing, and certain, and courage, shine for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, I realize I'm seeing my favorite language here. I this too. Doesn't make now. I didn't know it was in your kids. Bruce, I'm someone who knows. Bruce, she would Mama, Magdalene. Let's see. What would I like to do? Who's Tom? Dawn of a New Day. That's Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. Maroon 9. What's to do? Let's see. Let's see. We got one for doing the JFK files. So in answer to your question, we started working on the JFK files. I understand there was a very big drop again, but so we can either continue to work through the JFK files. One of the things I found out that was really interesting is why did they from what we didn't, like I said, we barely scratched the surface. We didn't even scratch the surface. We only got like 12 files in, but there's a lot of information in those files, and you got to look at the nuggets. And one of the things I found interesting is the fact that not only were they looking at Oswald, or see, this is where I get confused. Were they looking at Oswald for 4 years from back in 1959, or is that where they're is that where the investigation took them? Then there was the whole point of them asking Russia how Russia handled their visa process for when it like if a foreign national came to Russia and married a Russian citizen, what was their visa? Did they let that Russian citizen go right away? Did they keep them? And it was interesting because there was one guy. He was a British national. He was a student. He went there, and he had this tour guide that he quote fell in love with, and he wanted to marry her. And his dad tried to step in, and that's when it came out is that what USSR would do would these some of these women, they would basically pay. I don't know. I don't think they got paid, but they would basically tell them that they wanted them to go to, it was a honey trap. They go to the whatever nation that their spouse was, and 9 times out of 10 it was the guys marrying a female, and they mentioned that there was one where it was a woman marrying a man, but they said that they expected like 10% of the women that came from Russia to whatever country they would be in or married into, whoever their spouse was married. Anyway, I know I'm mangling things up. I'm trying to slow it down so I make it sense. But they would they expected 10% of the women that came over to whatever nation it was that they married into, that they would be spying for the Russians. So I thought that was interesting. And you wouldn't see that. We got somebody who wants to listen to Tom Fitton. Got another 47. So I said 47. So we got, looks like everybody wants to, well, looks like the most people. Thanks, Ellen101. And thank you, Crafty Fox, for putting out my PayPal account, and Vaughn. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. Yep, Deadcat. See. Yep. I like that JDT DJT prayer also. So Ellen, listen to what the people want. Hey, real praying mantis. If you want to. So y'all want to keep. It looks like a consensus wants to hurt. Do you have any peppermint? Dawn of a New Day, do you have any peppermint? Sometimes I think breathing in peppermint or sucking on peppermint helps me to breathe. So. Alright, well, I guess since it looks like the consensus is let's do some more digging into the JFK files. And maybe we can find some nuggets. I know a lot of people have been doing some deep dives and everything, but this is completely redacted, but that's the thing. What we're finding out too, and it's like I said, what some of these do, if they're not redacted, they are because people, what they do is they keep everything. So you might have 2 or 3 of the same copy because of the FOIA request. So. Okay. Yeah, and I thought about that too. Is about because I also talk about records retention, and in the government's dependent on where you're at, and dependent on how the records retention schedules are. So a government agency, and even it can happen in the private sector. What they do is all your files, say like, and I'll go with what I know since I work for the state. I work for the fire marshal's office. So they open up an investigation, they open up a file, they put all their notes in there. Most of the times, an investigator will have their own notes and have their own copy. Depending on the type of, like I worked in the licensing department. If there were violations and they went to legal, they would have a So you'd have a minimum of 3 copies, one for the office, one for the investigator, one for legal. An investigator could keep his own copy. And so, but what the original file, which would be the investigator file in the investigations office, would have the original file. So the legal and the investigating office would have to coordinate to make sure that they did not. They would set a time frame. So if a investigation would stay open until the end of the basic investigation, till the end of a restitution or whatever, it would be set. That's if it was if that was a case that went to legal. So once it goes to legal, once it's closed out, it could stay in the office for like 5 years and then go off site for another 10 to 15 years or 20, depending on the agency. And then it would be destroyed. So it would just depend on how the agency's retention. Now, here's the kicker. If an investigator kept their copies of the file, and if they did not destroy that file became the record copy. So any FOIA request that came in, if the other copies were destroyed, that copy, that investigator's copy, which became the investigation copy, would basically they would have to get that, but they would also have to know that the investigator had that copy. But copy, if the investigator's on staff, still, the FOIA comes in, they would ask the investigator, do you have any notes on this file? Investigator should say yes if he does. Now, if it's a case closed, that's a whole different retention. So they would have to go and have a retention schedule. If you got that's the reason why it's important for a FOIA request. If you're making a FOIA request, you got to be very, very specific on what you're looking for. Or you say, I want all files, phone calls, notes related to whatever file, whatever case it may be. And you got to put the words included but are not excluding, so they basically, because if you make it too specific, they're going to be whatever falls in that purview of what is specific. If you make it, let's see, included, but gosh, I can't remember the wording, but I think you get the drift. I hope you get the drift. You don't know what I mean? It's about understand. Yeah. So, okay, think of an investigation. Okay, you get the original complaint. You open up an investigation. You gather all your evidence. Okay, you have the agency that does the investigation. They're going to have a copy. If it goes to for legal dispensation, they're going to get a copy. The investigator will probably keep copies of their notes. That's the reason why, like these 702s, and they were asking, with President Trump's first term, and they were talking about the 702s and the notes for the 702s, and they were asking who did the 702s, and they couldn't find them. It could be because they were under... Oh, he's talking to Heidi? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. That's the reason why the chat can be really that's the reason why that's the reason why sometimes with chat I don't look at chat very often, because I never know if you're talking to me or someone else. And if you're talking to me, where you are responding to something I said 10 minutes ago, and so I'm taking it out of context. Okay. Anyway, so now that I'm clear as mud, we'll keep going, and we'll just keep going for another hour. All right, this is the Warren Commission report article on the investigation conducted by and District Attorney Garrison. So we are forwarding the work herewith. They always use that lawyer legalese. We are forwarding herewith a reprint of the article "A Reporter at Large Garrison," published in the. So this is where they use the Mockingbird. The Mockingbird media. So they're going to use this report, it looks like. Okay, they're reprinting an article. They probably were the ones that leaked the article to the New Yorker. And it's like I said before, if you've been watching my channel, several years ago when I went to the CIA vault, and we talked about that. We talked about how they, like when they were trying to take out Castro, and they hired, he was a native of Cuba, and he botched it. The guy that they hired botched it, so the guy was going to turn whistleblower, so they leaked the story to the New York, or not the Washington Journal, or Washington Post, and so that's where you got the Mockingbird media. So as it was written by J. Edward Epstein himself, author of a book, Inquest, critical of the Warren Commission. So Epstein, I wonder if he is related to good old Jeffrey. So the widespread campaign of adverse criticism of the U.S., most recently again revoked by the assassination of Senator. Okay, so here this seems like it's talking about Senator Robert Kennedy, appears to have revived foreign interest in the assassination of his brother, the late President Kennedy, too. The forthcoming trial of Sirhan, accused of the murder of Senator Kennedy, can be expected to cause a new wave of criticism and suspicion against the United States, claiming once more the existence of a sinister political murder conspiracy. We are sending you the attached article based either on first-hand observation by the author or on other identified source, since it deals with the continuing investigation conducted by District Attorney Garrison of New Orleans, Louisiana. That investigation tends to keep alive speculation about the death of President Kennedy and alleged, quote, conspiracy, unquote, and about the possible involvement of federal agencies, notably the FBI and CIA. And let's see, Brian A. Slack. And, the reason why I think it's important for us to go through this is it's not for us, it's for those out there who are still don't understand the significance of all this. Oh, yeah, and speaking of, I don't know when, but I saw that there are, and I don't know if Erin went over this, but they've hired FBI agents. They are on 12-hour rotating shifts going through the Epstein files now. So I don't know if y'all realize that, because, but they hid, 2,400 pages? I wonder if that's going to include videotapes and everything. So point 3, the article is not meant for reprinting in any media. It is forwarded primarily for your. So here's a question. Okay, why do you think they have this thing? The article is not meant for reprinting in any media, because you know that they would have leaked this and they would have brought the article up again and reminded people of what was said. So there must have been some truth in that article, if you ask me, in my opinion. So it is forwarded primarily for your information and for the information of all station personnel concerned. That was another thing that I found out is why were all of these stations all of these foreign stations, they had like 5 or 6 foreign stations like in Delhi, Bangkok. Uh, they had these station chiefs getting all this information. Why would that be necessary? If the garrison investigation should be cited in your area in the context of renewed anti US attacks, you may use the article to brief interested contacts, especially government and other political leaders, and to demonstrate to assets which you may assign to counter such attacks that there is no hard evidence of their conspiracy. In this context, assets may have to explain to their audiences certain basic facts about the U.S. judicial system. Its separation of state and federal courts. Well, we got courts and judges, and the fact that judges and district attorneys in the states are usually elected, not appointed. And wasn't yeah, didn't Schumer just come out recently and say that they uh, appointed 26 activist judges? I don't know if y'all saw that or not. Consequently, D.A. Garrison can continue in office as long as his constituents re-elect him. Even if your assets have to discuss this in order to refute or at least weaken anti-U.S. propaganda of sufficiently serious impact, any personal attacks upon Garrison or any other public personality in the U.S. must be strictly avoided. I think, wow, how times have changed. They spend a lot of time. So here's the distribution list. This is all the, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 internal distribution. And look at all these: Mexico City, Bogota, let's see, Monrova, Moldova, I can't, Tripoli, some of Beirut, Kabul, Kuwait, Tehran, New Delhi, Berlin. I mean, look at all these. Why are all these? Why is all this information being? Come on, move. Thank you. Why are all these? This information being to all these people? Was it 238? Okay, Mrs. D. Landry. Okay. I thought I heard they appointed 26 activist judges, but I could have been wrong on the number. Yep, Biden put in a bunch too. Okay, so we have another here. This is just a routing, and it's probably the same information. They always do the same thing. So the Director of Central Intelligence, Deputy Director of Plans. Letter for Director from Sir Charles Spry. So attached is a sealed letter from Sir Charles Spry, Director General of the... Oh, yeah. I think we already went through this one. This one, yeah, I think we might have already gone through this one. Like I said, they're probably more because of FOIA. So you're going to find... Let's see. Yeah, Yeah, I mean, that's what he does. He brags, right? Okay, so here is the letter from Dear Charles, or from Richard Helms. Thank you for your letter of 15th of October recommending against the declassification. I think we went through this. We went to. Okay. Wonder if we. Okay. So the fax station. Okay, so action required. The fax station received appears to be incomplete. It contained a cover sheet, a page, Copenhagen cable stating no traces, in the first page of a director cable requesting traces on Lee Harvey Oswald, unless the missing portions of the director cable have some bearing on Denmark. I mean, Denmark, man, they're all over the place. Cannot make a case against release of this material. We would insist, however, that crypts be deleted, as reference indicated would be the case. Please keep us apprised. Do not destroy. See, this is what I mean. Here it says, do not destroy, and then you got a cross-reference file. See, we've already gone through some of these. Or this may be just the duplicates. Okay, site is Petersburg. Let's see. See, a lot of this was from 1992 classification. Let's see, there's the Professor. Oh, I don't think I've seen this one. During the week of November the 3rd through the 9th of 1991, U.S. Professor E.B. Smith had several discussions in Moscow with Slava, which is Nikonov, who is a longtime friend and now deputy to KBG Director Bakatin. The professor has known Nikonov well since 1976. He is currently instructing a Fulbright grant at St. Petersburg State University until December 22nd, 1991. See paragraph 7 for bio. Stephen Heiberg has befriended the professor, who was a dinner guest at the Heiberg's home on November, and provided the following info on Nikonov and his new KGB job. Nikonov is the grandson of former minister Vyacheslav Molotov, like a Molotov cocktail, or Molotov. The U.S. professor taught Nikonov in 1976 at Moscow State University while a Fulbright professor. Sorry, everyone. I know I'm rambling, and I know it's just that this is a lot. Let's see. I'm just going to call him Nick. Nick was regarded as extremely intelligent and capable, gave the impression that he was an ideological hardliner. The professor believed that he was likely to be a rising star in the Soviet system and recommended him for an IRIX-sponsored visit to the U.S. As expected, Nick's views and rhetoric moderated very visibly after his first direct exposure to the U.S. He has said at least one additional IRIX-sponsored trip to the U.S. he has had, and has spent periods of time as a personal guest at the home of the U.S. professor in Maryland. Nick came to work in his position at the KGB as a result of being a close friend of, I'm going to call him Bakatin. During the August 1991 coup attempt, Nick said that he refused to follow his boss's order to act in accordance with the declared state of emergency. He was dismissed by his boss from his position and called Bakatin to seek advice. Bakatin said he was also opposing the coup and would look out for Nick. I mean, we need more people like that who's to oppose the coup of President Trump once an order was restored. Soon after the coup, Bakatin called him to ask that he assist with restructuring the KGB. After it was agreed that Nick could decline to accept two-star military KGB rank and work in the job for an equivalent civilian compensation package, he came to the KGB as Bakatin's deputy. Nick said his friends were delighted that he declined the KGB commission. Nick's first assignment from Bakatin was making arrangements for the KGB-CIA liaison relationship, which has now come into being in preparation for one possible question. So, see, temporary working copies. See, this should have been destroyed. So either this was another copy. This is a copy of a copy that became an active file. So the question which might be raised: Nix personally reviewed KGB files to determine if Lee Harvey Oswald had been a KGB agent. He reviewed 5 thick volumes of the files on Oswald. Nick is now confident that Oswald was at no time, here it goes, at no time an agent controlled by the KGB. So if he wasn't an agent, like they said, of the KGB, then who was he? From the description of Oswald in the files, he doubted that anyone could control Oswald, but noted that the KGB watched him closely and constantly while he was in the USSR. He commented that Oswald had a stormy relationship with his Soviet wife, who wrote him incessantly. The file also reflected that Oswald was a poor shot when he tried target firing in the USSR. So these are for the people that went along with the narrative that Oswald was along. So here you have at least one person who is saying that Oswald, of course, this is like almost 30 years later saying all this, but still you've got one person claiming he probably wasn't controlled by the KGB. Yeah, well, hey, Ellen, that's good. I guess I get bored. But, it's funny, if you say the right thing, it's funny how the trolls come out. I was on social media. I'm going to take a little bitty break, just to kind of, since people are bored. And I was on Facebook, and I was on the Nextdoor app, and there was a conversation going with a person that I say person in quotes, but this person that would try to argue with me, saying that every state has voter ID. And I said, no, they don't, because I know. I'm in California. I went to California. I registered to vote the very same day that I voted. And I was told not to show my ID. I mean, I had my ID on the thing, or on the little, there's that little window, and there's that little top, and you slide it. And so I see this same person all the time spreading the same fighting, and I responded to one of the people that was going back and forth with this person, and I said, she's she's paid to do this. I said, every time you tag her, she's paid. And so I didn't respond to her. I mean, it wasn't, it was in their line of chat, but, I didn't tag her name. I didn't, I didn't specify who it was. And she responded to me, and even though I didn't read it all, but I read what is visible if you don't click it. And she says, "Well, it's better than hanging out doing something." She basically, whether it was sarcasm or not, it doesn't matter to me, because she basically admitted to getting paid to be an agitator. And then I had the same thing on Facebook, and there was a protest over at the local Tesla company today. I didn't go by. I thought about going by, but I was just like, after the baseball game, I was just kind of tired, and to see how their little protest was turning out. And I told someone I said, they're paid protesters. I didn't identify anybody. I didn't say are paid organizers. And the person, responded and says, "Yeah, I kind of figured that. I'm not going to go." And someone actually baited the hook and says, "Ha ha ha, I would love to see the money I'm getting paid." I'm like, you rest my case. If you weren't getting paid, why would you even respond? I didn't tag you or anything. It's crazy. They cannot help themselves. They cannot help themselves. So some of these things you gotta troll. It's kind of like trolling them, but at the same time, I don't want to. I don't like interacting with them, because especially on Facebook, I get all these people that, "Oh, you want to be friends? You want me to make them friends? You want me to send a friend request?" I'm not going to send a friend request to 500 people. No, I'm not that desperate for that many people to be my friends. All right. Number 6, in preparation for establishment of liaison relationship with the Swedish intelligence. So now they're getting Sweden involved. Nick personally performed an inquiry for Bakatin into the fate of Swedish diplomat Raoul Wallenberg. There is still pressure from the Swedish side to have a definitive answer on this matter because of the continuing importance of the Wallenberg family. Nick was amazed to find out that the KGB had not been able to previously establish whether Wallenberg had died under what circumstances. He was able to find partial evidence from 14 different sources. Jeez, how partial evidence? Nick now believes, but found no conclusive proof, that Wallenberg was executed late in 1947. There were indications that Wallenberg was suspected of having contacts with others who were accused of providing false diplomatic identity documents to others beyond Jews saved from the Holocaust. Is that among these were Nazi war criminals were allowed to escape. There was no proof of Wallenberg's guilt in any of these charges. So Fulbright professor, who is Nick's former professor, and name is E.B. Smith, date of birth circa 1920, citizen U.S., occupation professor of history at University of Maryland, retired, resides near Annapolis. Fulbright professor for winter of 1991 term in St. Petersburg State University, USSR. 2 previous Fulbright assignments in Moscow and several. And PRC, I'm not sure what that, or PRO, and Germany. Host former students from USSR and I still can't read that. PRC on US visits. There are no base traces on Smith. He served in the military and is very well disposed towards the U.S. government. He volunteered info on Nick and other USSR. I can't think of what PRC would stand for. In German contacts to Heiberg and can provide considerable bio and assessment info on them. So I wonder, that would be interesting. That would be I mean, look at this. I mean, this professor goes to USSR. Remember, back then, USSR was still considered, not necessarily friendly or a frenemy, I guess. People were still suspicious in 1991 of the USSR, but why would this professor be going to the USSR? I remember in 8th grade we had somebody coming and talk about Russia and talking about going to Russia. They came to our school and talked about how Russia would be a good place to live, how you could get a car and stuff like that. Useful idiots. So we have another one here. Let's see what we can get in here. Action requested, none. We got Intel, Cuba tidbits. SWAC transcripts contain conversations between American Department official Romero Quintanilla and Honduran National Party controller Teofilo Martel. During this conversation, Abreu stated that Cuban President Castro Ruiz was unhappy with the prospect of Cuban elections that are to be held in Havana in December 1993. The Honduran official said that although elections were already held in 1993, they were going to be repeated, and there is a possibility that Castro will lose. In mid-May. So here you go. I mean, this is the kind of information. This may not be pertaining to the, I don't know why it would be continuing to the Kennedys, but, this is history beyond what was happening with the Kennedy investigation or Kennedy files. So I think this is why this it's the historical stuff that's important too. As we're seeing how much this is, it's not just the U.S., it's not just Cuba, it's not just Russia that's involved. They're talking about, Sweden, they're talking about Honduras, they're talking about all these different countries. Managua. So in mid-May 1993, National Party Congress President Rodolfo Arias Navas, and Martel traveled to Cuba on an unofficial visit. At that time, the three men were wined and dined by Fidel Castro. It is apparent from Abreu's conversation with Martel that he is a trusted friend of the Cubans. On November 27th, Cuban official Ruben Suarez spoke with another Cuban official posted in Managua, Maria Lopez, about the Kennedy assassination. Lopez claimed that Brigadier General Fabian Escalante Font of the Ministry of Interior was handling the matter and that he had information that could positively identify the Kennedy assassins. So that's all there. So it looks like every little thing. Unfortunately, like I said, some of that stuff probably got destroyed at some point in time. Okay. Come on. Come on. I don't want to have to stop the share to do that. Come on. Alright, come on. Really? You're going to make me stop my share? There. Thank you. I guess I had to bark at it to get it to do what I needed it to do. Let's see. This is the one I just got through doing. Oh. Yeah. So action, if you want us to fax the below messages to headquarters, please advise. So where is this? Write in individual. Bolton? N.W. Bolton? Probably not the same that we're thinking. So the following fax was sent to Denver, North Virginia tag office? I don't know. Office, and they, deputy of the FCI squad, in turn sent it over to us on February the 2nd, 1996 for a background. NAVTAG plans to no follow-up unless there is some interest by N.W. Bolton. Let's see. NAVTAG Denver received an unsolicited 2-page fax from a Robert Plumley, aka William H. Pearson. The first page was an informal note to NAVTAG, and the second page was an actual letter. The text of both pages is provided below. It should be noted that the writer refers to a time period of 1980 and also contact with a Paul Lee of the Bolton Denver Contact Division. This is probably their division code. This is probably former Denver chief of staff, Denver chief of something, Paul Leadham. We find no record of Plumley or Pearson in our current card files. I think you people should know what is coming down the pike in case there is a bad play from some people I know in reference to matters I have discussed with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and the House, which was a closed-door testimony in 1990 and 1992. Man, wouldn't we like to get a hand on those documents? I do not want to establish any form of contact with the other than this fax. However, I felt I should make some form of contact before the fact, just in case something does go down or sour in the next few months. I still like to consider myself a friend of the NAVTAG, but sometimes you people make it extremely difficult. The enclosed fax is just intel matter that someday may play an important role in one of your investigations. So, to Robert Vernon from William R. Plumley, aka William H. Pearson. I wonder why he needs a... So that would be interesting to remember. Does anybody remember what was going on January 28th of 1996? That'd be interesting to go back to a time travel to find out what's going on then. Let's see. How is that? Why is this? If this is from 1996, how did that get in there for 1992? I'm curious. Not unless this was a copy of a letter or something. I don't know. Dear Bob, in November 1980, I sabotaged the Denver Magazine article Fear and Loathing on the Assassination Trail because the documents and information I was giving to the magazine to verify certain events I allege was being given to the Denver. Boxes of government documents, pictures, names, and dates were turned over to Denver Magazine Doris Keller, editor Peter Boyles, writer Doug Vaughn, researcher. From these documents, Doug Vaughn and others use the documents and my statements to verify the fact sheet that is contained within the article. The NAVTAG came to my place before the article was published and talked to me about incriminating statements I had made to Denver Magazine. Maybe that's the reason why Colorado is such a state right now. Shortly after that, I changed names and dates in the article in an attempt to discredit the article and myself. I did not want to be part of any government probe into my past activities on behalf of Bolton and the Cuban desk and my Cuban friends. I never saw the article before it was published, never wanted to, especially after the meeting with TAG and Paul Lee of the Bolton Center, or Denver Contact Division. I said to hell with them and all associated with the Kennedy Bolton mess. I'm sorry. Shortly after that, my house in Grant, Colorado was firebombed and I was attacked and beat up outside a restaurant in Evergreen, Colorado. Interesting. I actually spent 2023, and my family and I, we went to Evergreen, Colorado and had Thanksgiving there. Witnesses and police reports on file as the event took place in August of 81. I made peace with my enemies and went back to work as a pilot until the Contra thing blew up and I testified 3 times to the Senate and the Congress. But guys, this would be a good dive for someone to do, to look into this guy. This William. Ah. Oh. Someday it will be declassified and then I'll talk some more. I wonder if he will. Is he still alive, I wonder? Let's see. I go back. I made peace with my enemies and went back to work as a pilot until the Contra thing blew up and I testified 3 times to the Senate and Congress. The Kennedy matter is contained within that testimony as well as the Boyle article. The testimony is classified type secret, committee sensitive today. Someday it will be declassified and then I'll talk some more. I hope this helps you in your pending project. However, I can't see how I can be of any help to you. I am not a credible source by my own doing. I think it should be own. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it was set up. Joe and I talked at length about this in California after a meeting with Oliver Stone, and even talked with Stone and his people about it. Hang in there, and I wish all of you the best as you try to untangle the maze and minefields that are still out there. Sincerely, Robert Pumley, Cuban desk, aka William Pearson. I wonder if William Pearson was his cover name or Robert Pumley. So, I think that's I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a pretty big, interesting. Thanks for the lemon. Mm-hmm. Hey, Carol, how's our project coming along? Let's see how much time we have. We got about 20 minutes. There's a lot of little files like this. Larceny. Let's see, Naval Operations Command. Sidney B. Calicrate prior to his TDY departure to Montevideo. This cable contains assessment data from based on observations of and discussions with blah 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 family during their reference outing to Chewy in early January 1994. Did the driving from Montevideo to Chewy, he does not like driving at night or in the rain, in contrast with his normal pleasant personality. L1 becomes aggressive and nervous behind the wheel. While families were staying together in rather small beach house, L1 and his wife got into a fight. She appeared to be the instigator. I think I've read this one before. L-Wife's in private. L-Wife says she blames L1 because when L1 divorced his previous wife, he gave her his apartment. Thus, L1 and his current wife will not have their own place to live in when they eventually return to Cuba. If I remember, this is referring to Lee Harvey Oswald. That is why during their previous trip to Cuba from Uruguay, L1 and wife built an extra room onto house of Mrs. L's parents in Guanabo. Mrs. L also said that L1 is muy consumista, a compulsive shopper, and she has to control him when they go to the supermarket because L1 always buys too much. Mrs. L1 explained that L1 grew up in a very poor family and that is why he buys too much of everything. She also criticized for spoiling their children. Let's see. Not sure what all this is to do. Whoa. The more elevated plane. The response. I mean, I don't. Lennon's. So on a more elevated plane, F-86 also had some private philosophical and political discussion with L1. In response to F-86's direct question, L1 said that the writers who have influenced him the most are Marx, Hegel, and Kant. L1 said that Lenin's main achievement was to recognize need for only one party. Sounds like that's what we have in our country, in our government right now. L1 considers Lenin to have been an interpreter of Marx, but not a great theoretician. To some extent, L1 defended Lenin's so-called law of economic prudence, a means of economic planning which Lenin unsuccessfully attempted to implement in USSR. After Lenin's death, it became excessively bureaucratized and atrophied, although this system did work with some success in Bulgaria. L1 also acknowledged need for neoliberal medicine to reform Cuban economy because there is no other solution. L1 added, however, that reform should be instituted with minimum social and political costs, while states should not be excessively interventionist in economy. L1 wants state to retain its protective social role because market economy also has its faults. So L1 talked about assassination of President John F. Kennedy. According to L1, in 1969, L1 personally saw Fidel Castro receive a group of U.S. radicals. Castro talked to them for 2 hours about why one assassin could not possibly have killed Kennedy. Castro ordered a reenactment of the crime using his best marksmen, and they could not duplicate what Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly did by himself. L1 said that 3 groups were involved in killing the president. One group of Cubans, one group of mafiosos, and a third group of mercenaries. The third group included a man with a Greek name. L1 told F-86 that it is not known whether any of these groups ever had any connection with Pinfanet. In this regard, reported to station that L1 is always careful not to attack this pinfinite, I don't know, and when F86 is present. So I wonder what that's kind of odd. Montevideo. That's kind of an odd discussion. You go from Marx to all of a sudden you're talking about Kennedy. Let's see. Probably. Classify. Let's see, how old is this one? This is 1987. Square preliminary checks on recorded conversations revealed. No trace 1952 dark blue Buick belonging Soviet or block installation CNBR or Sydney. No license plate identical to one mentioned but followed NSW variants checked. The thing about these files is like they're only 2 or 3 pages, not really, you don't really get a full picture because, first of all, they're not in order. The second of all, basically snapshots, and that's the reason why you have to take notes to, okay, this is a long one. Do not reproduce. Turn to CIA. This is the 201 system. So the 201 system provides a method of identifying a person of specific interest to the operations director and for controlling and filing all pertinent information about that person. The system also provides a means for identifying subjects of 201 files from various categories of information about them and for producing lists of 201 personalities according to those categories. Only a relatively small number of personalities indexed are of sufficient interest to justify opening a 201 dossier. These are normally subjects of extensive reporting and CI investigations, prospective agents and sources, members of groups and organizations of continuing target interest, or subjects to whom a volume of correspondence has accumulated. So the principle of the 201 are unique number assigned to each individual in the system as serving an identifying file number. They probably use your social security as a filing number. How much you want to bet for reporting on that individual? The official file containing 201 opening form, that gives you, that's just the information sheet, the history, the biological. A machine record generated by the opening of the file. This record produces master references to the main index. Oh my gosh. It's like writing a book. This reference printed in reply to an index request is printed as illustrated below. When data are absent within the record, succeeding data items or lines will be moved up in the reference and the reference consolidated. So you hear, this is just exactly what it goes into a 201, which is going to be lengthy. So in general, operating or the opening of a 201 dossier is prerogative of an operational component in coordination with the Information Service Group, ISG. An opening creates a master record, changes the master record, and occasional closing are controlled jointly by the desk and ISG. Dossiers may be opened on persons who meet the carding criteria described in Chapter 2 of the handbook. When there is a reasonable expectation that additional information be acquired to file. This is the kind of stuff that they want keep hidden. How many of you we kind of know it because we kind of figured, because this is what happened to President Trump in this first term. But this is the kind of stuff that they want to keep hidden because then you know how they operate. So let's see, contents, information about a 201 personality should be filed or cross-referenced with this dossier. Material which is filed in the dossiers includes but not limited. That is what you need in a FOIA, including but not limited. So that is your open, because anything, when you do a FOIA, you've got to have something like that. So let's see, personality file, action requests, biographic info, personal record, the questionnaire, operational approval, checks. I mean, they do a background check to see if you have any pseudonyms, what you went, if you like ladies, if you took your husband's name, if you went by your own last name, they do all of that. Copy of contact and termination paper, secrecy. Here it is, the swirl report. How about newspaper clippings? Any information which help provide a better understanding of the subject and are interested in him may include operational reporting. So maintenance. So purging is the responsibility of the desk officer. It requires discrimination and recognize. So here you have, so in this case that they're saying they have no, they have, basically it sounds like they have no records retention, that the desk officer can decide what they need to add and what they need to, what they could do away with. So it requires discrimination in recognizing operationally usable material rather than the simple distinction between official and unofficial papers. It will therefore take place under the supervision of the records officer. So there you go. Purging should be done periodically. A 201 dossier being forwarded to central files for retention should be purged. So the following should be purged. So duplicate, extra copies, name trace unless it is opening, abstract slips, all document restriction notices, disseminated versions, routing slips. So anything routed, record copy documents only repeat substantive information. Top secret are not retained. Okay, why? Oh, so top secret documents are not to be retained in a dossier forwarded to central files. The document must be downgraded to be in a dossier. To downgrade a top secret, an authorized officer in the originating office or records officer have a jurisdiction over the contents, must possess top secret. So this is kind of this is where they're Doge is purging some of these positions on these. I think this is where some of the purging's coming from. And remember, and just think of the stuff that President Trump is taking away clearances for some of these people. So all material must be filed in document date order. I guess I'm going to go through all of this. But here's what it looks like. Now it's a car. So guys, I hope y'all learned something new. I hope there's stuff in here that y'all didn't know. Yeah, actually, if you pay it, never mind. I'm not gonna get into it. But I think what I think, like I said, I think it's the history behind what everybody's focused on JFK, JFK. It's the history behind everything. This is what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. What was going on? Like the one guy that in 19, that wrote that letter, that William, that Pumling guy. What's his background? That's something to be digging into. I mean, that's a rabbit hole. And it's like I told Erin, it's like a spider web. You go down one trail and you got this guy pummeling. What was going on in 19, was it when he wrote that letter? 1994? Or he sent that? He sent that to, so what was going on in 1996? That was it. So I think everybody's looking at the forest, but they're not paying attention to the trees. And it certainly feels like it. I mean, it's not about. I mean, we already had somebody come out and said you had somebody from. Oh gosh, now I can't remember now, but you've already had someone who come out and said it wasn't. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald doing it. So, anywho, so I don't know if I should try. I'm gonna try. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna try this thing. So I see Dano's in the house. How are you, Dano? Dano. Are you still there? Dano. Hello, Dano. Okay. It's not ready yet, but yeah, it's 6 minutes. Yeah, I have to. I'll have to. What I'll have to do is I'll have to do that. Maybe I can do it next week or something. Okay.
Hey, Deb,
Thanks,
I'm here.
Thanks, Dynamax. Oh. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. We got about 4 minutes. Hold on a second. Let me do this because this is something that I across with the ACA. Hold on. Oops. I was going to say, talk to me.
I was on my desk, but I could hear you.
I'm
ready.
It's like we got 5 minutes. It's like, okay, how are you this week? How lots of things happening.
Lots of things happening. I've been pretty busy this week. It's been a good week. Not really in the news day to day so much this week, but there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, have you? I know if you've been busy, you probably haven't had a chance to look at the any of the files, right?
For the JFK files?
Yeah.
A little bit. Most been asked to catch up with how they started.
Yeah. Yeah, like PCI are trying to use antifreeze they try to use something, and there's just, and some of it sounds like things, and I just read a guy, one of the documents that a guy said that Oswald couldn't have done it, and I mean, for a lot of people, I mean, I never looked into that stuff before, it was one of those, people just drew their own conclusions. So I think having the documentation kind of helps people to either say, okay, yeah, this proves my theory right, or this proves my theory wrong. I think it's just a validation. But my question is go ahead.
I was gonna say it silences those that want to call people conspiracy theorists for trying to figure that out. You know, what they reported wasn't the full truth at all.
Yeah, my thing too is why, I mean, why are all these I mean, there are all these countries involved, and they're sending,
So
I mean, they were sending paperwork to all these different stations, you know, in Jakarta and Djibouti and Bulgaria and things like that. It's like Belgium. It, it's almost like a World War III, a silent World War III war going on behind the scenes.
there is a globalist cabal, whatever you want to call them. There's a small group of people pulling the strings on these things. So it's frustrating for me, but it's still, when you say the CIA, or not you, when people say the CIA was involved, the CIA did it, or Mossad, or whatever. That's a group. That's not an individual, right? And so it's an entity being used, and who's using these entities? I think that's the next question, right?
Or
CIA is tied in with Mossad. Mossad's tied in, and CIA is tied in with MI5 and MI6, and yeah, it leads back to London and the Vatican and the dynastic banking families that have been pulling the strings, in my opinion.
well, then you had Hungary. You have I mean, there's information about Hungary, and oh gosh, I'm like all of a sudden my mind's going bright. I mean, they're still focused. I mean, in 1996, they're still focusing on Russia. You know, the USSR and Russia. By then, you know, for all intents purposes, USSR, the ball came down and all that under Reagan. And then you have, I mean, like I said, it just, to me, I kind of find it fascinating. It's a lot of information, and it is a little boring to go through it because, and it's like I said, you got records retention, so something's not going to be complete for a simple fact that there are things, because based on their records retention schedule, if they have one, some of it, in fact, I had one that says use. You know, it was classified destroyed after use. And then I just read the one, oh yeah, I was reading 201 procedures. I think that's one reason why they didn't want it. They didn't want it. This release too. But if anybody really dug in to know what the 201 procedures are, they did those 201 procedures on President Trump. So nothing's changed. And I know I'm at the top. You're at there, so I'm gonna let you go. I just, like I said, anytime you want to come in, just a little, 10, 15 minutes early. And I don't like talking to myself that much. So it helps when I have somebody to talk to. So if you want to come in, anytime you want to come in 10, 15 minutes early, you can.
Sounds good. I'm always down for a fun conversation. You good weekend, Deb?
Or whenever, just jump in whenever. Okay.
Alrighty.
And I will see you next week. Y'all have a great week. Thank you, chat. Thank you for listening to my rantings. And I will see y'all Thursday, I hope. All right. Bye.
All right. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.